Howdy y'all and hello all. Welcome back to O State All Day. If you caught my last video, or my last couple of videos, I hinted at going into some of the Heisman conversations that are happening at the moment, and or some of the publications that have been put out via social media. Primarily, I'm talking about the one that Fox Sports put out. Initially, when they put out their front runners for Heisman, they also included statistics underneath the pictures. They have since removed the statistics and just put the daggone pictures out of the who's who of who could potentially win the Heisman. Has the Heisman Trophy turned into a beauty pageant as opposed to the best player in the game of football? You could argue either way, I believe. At this very moment, if you go off of the number one classification being QBR, which is the quarterback rating system, number one on the list has to be C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud has gone 62 of 85, 941 yards, 0 picks, 11 touchdowns. The 11 TDs part of it, that's actually fairly impressive. You got to, tip the cap to that. And Ohio State hasn't jumped off the page as far as the whole yet, in my opinion. The defensive coordinator they stole from us, Jim Knowles, their defense looks pretty good. And C.J. Stroud's numbers obviously indicate that he's got the ability. He's going to most likely end up in New York as long as he doesn't have a catastrophic injury. They've played Notre Dame, Arkansas State, and Toledo. Again, one thing that's going to be a direct correlation for all of these is the opponents. Not common opponents per se, but everybody's going to play an FCS school. Everybody's going to traditionally play a mid-tier school. Everyone's going to play another Power 5 program that kind of allows you to figure out where you're at the moment, roster-wise, depth chart-wise, and what you need to correct going into conference play. Okay? I'm very well aware this is somewhat of a small sample size because we're only a few games into the season. So if you jump down the list, again, predicated upon QBR, you'd have to go with Caleb Williams, right? Everybody knows Caleb's story. He snuck off like a thief in the night with Lincoln to run off to USC. Again, the sticker on the helmet. He's 64 of 86, 0 picks, 8 TDs, actually. 8 touchdowns, 874 yards. They played Rice, Stanford, and Fresno State. Again, commonality of opponents is going to be something to pay attention to. Number 3 on the list, off of QBR, is Stetson Bennett. Everybody knows Stetson Bennett's story, primarily because the JT Daniels stuff from a season ago. Everybody thought that JT Daniels, who's a former 5-star recruit, who's now at West Virginia, was the bee's knees for Georgia and was going to potentially lead Georgia to a national title. Ironically enough, it wasn't JT Daniels, it was Stetson Bennett, who was thought of as a game manager that could potentially get you somewhere, but not all the way there. His QBR currently is 92.9. Okay, he's 65-88, 0 picks, but only 5 touchdowns. He does have 952 yards. Okay, so from a yardage standpoint, it's looking pretty good. The 5 touchdowns seems to be I would say it's slightly concerning. Okay. Their opponents have been Oregon, Samford, not Stanford, and South Carolina. South Carolina was kind of a darling coming into the season because of the transfer of Spencer Rattler, Austin Stogner, both coming from Oklahoma to South Carolina. They have not lived up to the bill. And I like Shane Beamer. I'm not a big fan of Rattler per se, but if you look at that Beyond the Lights QB Journey TV thing that he was on a few years ago, he didn't look like somebody that was going to be a team leader. So hopefully they get it turned around South Carolina, but right now, not happening. Okay. Next on the list, Dillon Gabriel from OU. Dillon Gabriel is 52-78, 0 picks. He's only got 7 TDs. Now, this was supposed to be a high-octane, explosive Jeff Lebby offense that was supposed to put up a lot of points and be super productive with Marvin Mims. I don't see it. I haven't seen it. He does have 759 yards, which is not bad. QBR of 78.3. Now, when it goes from QBR, Stroud, Williams, Bennett, and then to Gabriel, it's kind of obviously a separation. Going from 92.9 to 78.3, statistically speaking, that drop-off has to matter. But QBR is not the end-all, be-all to the statistical categories that matter when it comes to quarterback play on your team in a conference. Okay? They've played UTEP, Kent State, and a terrible, in the famous words of Charles Barkley, a terrible Nebraska squad. I think that somewhat similar to South Carolina with Casey Thompson transferring from Texas to Nebraska, Scott Frost, this was going to be the year that he was going to figure it out. Not only is that not the case, they're pretty rough. And obviously he's gone. Okay? So, I don't know. Dillon Gabriel, from a yards perspective, he's significantly below the rest, as is the next guy we're going to talk about. QBR, obviously there's a little bit of a drop. 0 picks is good. 7 TDs for a high-octane offense, to me, doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense, but I digress. Next on the list is going to be Bryce Young from Alabama. Bryce Young's 58 to 85. He already has 2 picks, okay? He's got 9 TDs. And he's only thrown for 644 yards. So Dillon Gabriel's yardage and Bryce Young's yardage is a massive dip from everybody else's. So can you tell me why they're on this list for anything other than the fact of the helmet that they get to put on? I think the argument can be made no matter what. They've played Utah State, Texas, and Louisiana Monroe. Utah State has been a team that could sneak up on you for quite a while now. I think they're in the same breath as the Nevadas, San Diego States. Maybe not quite Boise State, but you know what I mean, in that conversation. So that's a good win, any way you slice it up. Everybody made a big deal about their game with Tejas. Texas looked pretty decent. It sucked that Quinn Ewers went down the way that he did. It was cool to see Hudson Card battle through his ankle injury. I don't know. It's Texas, right? They have another big helmet sticker. They pay lots of money. They got Steve Sarkisian. They just got Arch Manning to commit. But that's always been Texas. Like, Texas has always been the forbidden fruit that you shouldn't eat because it's poisonous every year. And then Louisiana Monroe, don't know a lot about him. Okay? And then you get to our guy, Spencer Sanders. 62 of 95. He's got 1 pick and 10 TDs. To go along with his 10 TDs, he has 916 yards. And not only that, the last game we did exactly what we were supposed to do, but Spencer Sanders didn't play more than a quarter of football and some change. You know what I mean? Our backups, second and third string, got 2.5 quarters of solid football. So Spencer Sanders is putting up video game numbers in a quarter of football, and he gets 0 respect. Not only that, the commonality in the opponents I mentioned earlier, we've played Central Michigan University, which our defense, I don't know, they had some stuff to work out, okay? And then we faced Arizona State. Arizona State's a little bit of a dumpster fire. They got a lot of athletes on the field, but they also just lost their head coach, Herm Edwards, who is an icon in the NFL to some degree, okay? And then obviously University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, we did exactly what we were supposed to do. Another layer of all of this when it comes to statistically, right? You can look at the completion percentages, you can look at the yards, you can look at the QBR, you can look at the commonality of opponents, and all of that does tell a pretty good story. It has nothing to do with the helmet stickers. But another thing that I was looking at, because I noticed it in the broadcast of the Pine Bluff game, was points responsible for, right? And that's the one that I kind of want to pay attention to here, because number one, now how their point system works, I didn't fully divulge all of that information, but whatever analytics they use to come up with the points responsible for system has Spencer Sanders at the #1 quarterback in the United States of America. To win, you have to score points. You have to score more points than the other guy. So if you're putting up numbers and you're doing it against pretty quality competition, equal competition to everybody else, why? Why are you not on the list for anything other than the fact that he doesn't wear the same helmet as everybody else? If you slap an OU on him because of his stats destroying Dillon Gabriel's, this wouldn't even be a conversation. And that's kind of my point. Dillon Gabriel and Bryce Young, they're not doing it for me yet. Maybe you, but it just being the leader of the team and the guy that's responsible for the thing that equals wins, which is typically more points than the other guy, you got to take this stuff into consideration. They don't have him as #1 for no good reason. It's because he does his job, and he does it very well. And he deserves some of the accolades. So yeah, he was #1 at 78 points for the points responsible for. Next on that list at #7, scoring 66 points is C.J. Stroud. So you go from Spencer Sanders to C.J. Stroud, but there's a decent gap there. Okay, so if you can take all the other stats, mix with that stat, throw out the helmet, and do this thing the right way, y'all. After C.J. Stroud, who is this? Bryce Young, 9th in the United States of America, and points responsible for at 66. Who else we got? Oh, fun one. Again, the stats aren't always going to line up, but Jalen Daniels from the University of Kansas football is #10 at 60 points. Okay? And then after him, let's see, #16 in America, Caleb Williams, USC. Cute nails, though. And then you have Dillon Gabriel, #26 in the country, 54 points. And then you have Stetson Bennett, 34th in the country at 48 points. I think you get the picture. If you did a blind study of nothing but stats, and you had no idea which players those stats equaled, I guarantee you Spencer Sanders is on that list far before Dillon Gabriel and even Bryce Young. So let's call a spade, right? Let's do this thing the right way, because it's not about who you play for. It's about what you do and how many wins and losses it equals. That's all I got for this segment. Tune in next time, guys, and I'll go over the Baylor game that we have coming up after this bye week. Again, thank you for your time. I love you all. Go Pokes. God bless. See you later.